the kind of cold that makes your teeth ache, the kind of cold that cracks your knuckles and freezes your breath before it leaves your lips. It's dawn in the high Rockies, 1836. A man named Elijah, wrapped in a buffalo robe patched with sinew and hope, crouches in the shadow of a spruce, eyes fixed on a game trail. He's not holding a rifle. He's not even holding a bow. He's waiting for a trigger he set the night before. A trigger that, if you used it today, would get you arrested in every state west of the Mississippi. Because here's the truth nobody wants to say out loud. The mountain men who survived the wild didn't play by the rules. They couldn't afford to. The rules were written by people who never had to choose between a full belly and a frozen grave. The rules were written after the fact, by lawmakers who never spent a night in a snow cave, never tracked elk through 6 feet of powder, never watched the last of their flour disappear with the last of their luck. And that's why the most effective hunting techniques in North American history, the ones that kept men alive through winters that killed the unprepared, are now illegal, banned, forgotten, buried under a mountain of regulations, ethics codes, and a modern hunting industry that wants you to believe the only way to put meat on the table is with a $2,000 rifle, a camo jacket, and a tag you had to win in a lottery. But the mountain men knew better. They used what worked. And what worked was simple, brutal, and astonishingly effective. Today, I'm pulling back the curtain on 7-band mountain man hunting techniques that actually worked for centuries. Not because I want you to break the law, but because you deserve to know the truth about what's possible when survival is on the line, and why that knowledge was buried, not lost. 1. The Deadfall Trap. Let's start with the most iconic, the most effective, and the most universally banned, the deadfall. Picture a log, balanced on a stick, held up by a trigger so sensitive a mouse could set it off. Bait is placed beneath the log. The animal noses in, nudges the trigger, and the log drops, instantly crushing the prey. No gunpowder, no arrow, just gravity, leverage, and a design so old it predates written history. Mountain men didn't invent the deadfall. They perfected it. The figure 4 deadfall was the gold standard. 3 sticks, notched and balanced in a way that looks like a child's puzzle until you see it in action. The trigger stick is baited with meat, fat, or whatever the target animal craves. When the animal moves the bait, the structure collapses and the log falls. Why was it banned? Because it works too well. Deadfalls don't discriminate. They kill anything that triggers them. Fox, raccoon, marten, even the neighbor's dog if you're not careful. They're silent, require no ammunition, and can be set in dozens at a time. In the 19th century, a single trapper could set a line of deadfalls along a creek and come back the next morning to a pile of fur and meat. Today, every state in the U.S. bans deadfall traps for mammals. The reason? Inhumane. The real reason? They're too effective for a world that wants hunting to be sport, not survival. But here's the part that should make you question everything you've been told. The deadfall isn't just a tool. It's a lesson in physics, patience, and the kind of ingenuity that comes from having nothing but time and hunger. The mountain men didn't need a license. They needed dinner. 2. Snares and spring poles. If the deadfall is the hammer, the snare is the scalpel, a loop of wire, rawhide, or twisted sinew set along a game trail or at the entrance to a burrow. The animal steps through the loop, triggers the mechanism, and the snare tightens, either holding the animal in place or, in the case of a spring pole, yanking it off the ground and out of sight of predators. Mountain men learned snaring from Native Americans who had been using the technique for millennia. The principle is simple. Animals are creatures of habit. They follow the same paths, use the same holes, and ignore anything that doesn't smell like danger. A well-set snare is invisible, odorless, and deadly. The spring pole snare is a marvel of bush engineering. A sapling is bent over and anchored to the ground. The snare is attached to the tip. When the animal triggers the loop, the anchor is released and the sapling snaps upright, hoisting the animal into the air. This not only kills quickly in the case of small game, but also keeps the catch away from scavengers. Why is it banned? For the same reason as the deadfall. It works too well. Modern trapping laws require live catch or humane traps, and snares are considered indiscriminate and cruel. But for the mountain man, a snare was the difference between eating and starving. It was a tool of necessity, not of sport. And here's the outrage. Snares are still used by survival instructors, military seer, survival, evasion, resistance, escape, schools, and indigenous communities in emergencies. The knowledge is alive, but the law says you can't use it unless you're dying. By then, it's too late to learn. 3. The pit trap. This one is as old as civilization itself. Dig a hole, line it with stakes, cover it with branches and leaves and wait. The animal, deer, elk, even bison, steps onto the camouflaged surface and falls in, impaling itself or becoming trapped. Mountain men used pit traps for big game when ammunition was scarce or when hunting alone. A well-placed pit on a migration trail could feed a man for weeks. The stakes at the bottom were sometimes sharpened, sometimes not. The goal was to immobilize, not necessarily to kill instantly. Why is it banned? Because it's indiscriminate, dangerous, and impossible to regulate. Pit traps can catch anything: livestock, pets, even people. They're considered unethical by modern standards, and for good reason. They're brutal, but in a world without supermarkets, they were a lifeline. The real lesson? The mountain man understood that the land was both provider and adversary. The pit trap is a reminder that survival isn't pretty, it's effective. 4. Fire drives and corral hunts. Now we get to the techniques that required teamwork, planning, and a willingness to bend the land to your will. The fire drive is exactly what it sounds like. A group of men would set controlled fires in a semicircle, driving game toward a natural barrier, a cliff, a river, or a waiting line of hunters. The animals, panicked by the smoke and flames, would run in the only direction left, straight into the kill zone. Corral hunts, or buffalo jumps, were even more dramatic. Native Americans perfected this technique, and mountain men learned from them. A herd of bison would be driven toward a cliff or into a fenced enclosure built from logs and brush. At the last moment, the animals would be funneled into a narrow chute, where hunters waited with spears, bows, or later rifles. Why are these methods banned? Because they're too efficient. Modern hunting laws require fair chase, the idea that the animal has a sporting chance. Fire drives and corral hunts give the animal no chance at all. They're considered unsporting, dangerous, and environmentally destructive. But here's the truth: these methods fed entire communities. They were used for centuries because they worked. The modern idea of fair chase is a luxury of abundance. The mountain man didn't have that luxury. 5. Poisoned bait. This is the one nobody wants to talk about. The one that's been erased from the official histories. Mountain men, especially in the fur trade, sometimes use poison bait to kill wolves, coyotes, and even bears. The poison was usually strychnine, arsenic, or a concoction made from native plants like water hemlock or monkshood. The bait, usually a chunk of meat, was laced with the toxin and left along a game trail or near a carcass. Why was it used? Because predators were a constant threat to livestock, horses, and even the men themselves. A single wolf could destroy a trap line in a night. Poison was the nuclear option, effective, indiscriminate, and devastating. Why is it banned? For obvious reasons. Poison bait kills everything: target animals, scavengers, birds of prey, even pets. It contaminates the land and water. Modern wildlife management considers it an ecological disaster. But here's the uncomfortable truth: it worked. It was used for centuries, not because men were evil, but because they were desperate. The lesson isn't to use poison. The lesson is to understand the lengths people will go to when survival is at stake, and to remember that the land always pays the price. 6. Fish traps and weirs. Not all hunting happens on land. The mountain men were masters of the stream and river, and their fishing techniques were as ingenious as they were illegal today. The fish trap is simplicity itself, a V-shaped fence of stones or sticks built in a shallow stream, with the point of the V facing downstream. Fish swimming upstream are funneled into the trap, where they can be scooped out with a net or by hand. Weirs are larger, more permanent structures, sometimes built with woven willow branches, that direct fish into holding pens or baskets. Why are they banned? Because they catch everything. Fish traps and weirs don't discriminate between species, size, or season. They can decimate fish populations if overused. Modern fishing laws require rod and reel, one fish at a time, with strict limits on size and species. But for the mountain man, a fish trap was a guarantee of protein. It could be set and left overnight, freeing up time for other survival tasks. In a world where every calorie counted, efficiency was the only ethic that mattered. And here's the outrage. Fish traps are still used by indigenous communities under special permits and by survival instructors in emergencies. The knowledge is alive, but the law says you can't use it unless you're dying. 7. The salt lick and baited blinds. The final technique is so effective it's banned in almost every state. The salt lick. Animals crave salt. In the wild, they travel miles to find natural salt deposits. The mountain men learned to exploit this by creating artificial salt licks. Blocks of salt, sometimes mixed with minerals or even molasses, placed in a clearing or along a game trail. The hunter would build a blind nearby, wait for the animals to come and take his shot. Baited blinds took the concept further. Corn, apples, or other food was scattered in a clearing, and the hunter waited in ambush. The technique is as old as hunting itself and as effective as anything ever invented. Why is it banned? Because it removes the fair chase element. Animals are drawn to the bait, making them easy targets. Modern hunting laws prohibit baiting in most states, with heavy fines for violators. But here's the truth. Salt licks and baited blinds worked for centuries because they leveraged animal behavior, not technology. The mountain man didn't have time for sport. He had time for survival. Why these techniques were buried, not lost. Here's the quiet outrage. These techniques weren't lost because they didn't work. They were buried because they worked too well. They were buried by a system that decided hunting should be sport, not survival, by an industry that profits from selling you gear, licenses, and the illusion of fair chase, by a culture that forgot what it means to be hungry. You've been told that hunting is about ethics, about rules, about doing things the right way. But the mountain men knew that the only right way is the way that keeps you alive. Their techniques were brutal, efficient, and effective. They were born of necessity, not choice. And here's the empowerment. The knowledge isn't gone, it's just hidden. Survival instructors, indigenous communities, and a handful of old-timers still know how to set a deadfall, build a fish trap, or dig a pit. The skills are there, waiting to be remembered. What you can learn and use today. I'm not telling you to break the law. I'm telling you to reclaim the knowledge that was always yours. Understand animal behavior, trails, habits, cravings. These are the real secrets to success. Learn to improvise. A snare can be made from wire, rawhide, or even a shoelace. Study the land. The best trap is useless in the wrong place. Practice patience. The mountain man's greatest tool was time. Respect the resource. These techniques fed families, not egos. Use them wisely, if ever. Teach others. The chain of knowledge is only as strong as its next link. The truth they never wanted you to know. The 7-band mountain man hunting techniques worked for centuries because they were born of necessity, not convenience. They were buried because they threatened a system that profits from your dependence. You are not broken. You were just given broken instructions. The tools were always there. The knowledge was always yours. Now you know.